Hello everyone, how's it going? In this video, we will talk about Palantir, trading under the ticker symbol PLTR. The financial market went through a very volatile period of time with big swings ups and downs. And one of the most talked about and sought after stock in this period of time has been Palantir. In this video, we will go through the company to talk about what the company does, what it represents, the most recent price action, the financials, and my recommendation regarding whether it should be bought, sold, or held. As always, if you appreciate what I do, please consider to drop a like, subscribe to my channel, and check out the links in the description. Before we begin, I'd like to make a brief disclaimer regarding what this video is about. This is my opinion about how Palantir is going to go. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily gonna be what's going to happen. So it should be watched for entertainment purposes only. Hopefully it can help you to make better decisions, but that's not a guarantee. And also it shouldn't be the only thing that you watch before you make the decision of whether you should be buying it. Most of the analysis is done either immediately before or a few days before the uploading. And the price action is not always up to date. With that being said, analyzing the past is always relevant for future trends. Also, my analysis will try to cover the stock as comprehensively as possible. So it'll talk about more factors than just the latest news or the price actions. For instance, the company, we might talk about the financials, the stock trends, the long-term perspectives, and the shareholder behaviors. They're all going to affect the decision of whether you want to buy to begin with, how much you want to buy, and if you want to buy now. So a lot of people are watching these videos for the first time, so this is why it's important to include all these factors in the videos. With that being said, let's begin with today's topic. So Palantir is a data analytics company based in Denver. People have been very hopeful with what it might be able to deliver, not just to the investors, but to the economy overall. As we know, data is one of the most precious and least understood resources that corporations have. A lot of people don't know what to do with them. And this is where Palantir really shines. What Palantir wants to accomplish is to make use of digital footprint left behind by users and stakeholders to help companies to make better decisions, to optimize the company's operations, and to increase their bottom line. Palantir is also known to be very well introduced in the public sector, with some of their biggest clients being government departments in healthcare, defense, and law enforcement. The reason why this makes Palantir unique is because those contracts tend to be long-term, with guaranteed cash flows, and are testaments of deep relationships. With that being said, the very nature of the company's business model has put Palantir in the tech sector, marketed as such, and also as a growth stock, because it's going to use its resources to grow, and something that most tech startups would promise as well. And they have also delivered on some of their promises. So for example, the revenue of the company did grow over time, and they have diversified the activities in the private sector and have upgraded their software platforms ever since. There have, however, also been a few setbacks. Despite the fact that Palantir has been in operations for many years, they're not profitable just yet. The overall cost results in a net loss, and this has been one of the bigger hurdles preventing its shares reaching higher places. Palantir is also having an overexposure in public sector, in my opinion, making it vulnerable to spending cuts. The third hurdle is its own reputation. Palantir deals with data, which might cause privacy concerns regarding how they're obtained and how they're used. In fact, the company's mixed reputation has been concerning, especially in conference call where Alex Karp, the CEO, stated that many of their clients dislike the company, but they don't have a choice but to deal with them. This is alarming to my opinion, and efforts to improve the brand image and reputation should be implemented in the near future. The final issue that Palantir has is unfavorable market trends. Simply put, Palantir, just like any growth stocks, requires a favorable investment environment in which investors are optimistic about the future to put their money in. Therefore, with the looming recession, the raising interest rates, and a quantitative tightening of money, especially of US dollars, as well as the conflicts around the world, investors no longer have this kind of confidence in the future and prefer to put their money in the safe investment options like savings account, bonds, and blue chips. So it's suffice to say that Palantir has been having a lot of downward pressure lately, and those issues will take time before being resolved. In the meantime, the gravitational pull would be downward and remain downward. Over the past 5 days, Palantir has been bottoming near the $7 level and recovered somewhat up to like $7.40, currently back to around $7.30. This might be a mechanical reaction from the previous sell-off, since over the past month, Palantir went down by 15%. It doesn't really mean that Palantir will necessarily start the takeoff from there, but simply to take a pause before the market participants decide where to head next. Can Palantir dip even lower? Of course, that's theoretically possible. But with the historical low not that far from here, I expect that it's going to be very choppy if the market decides to send it lower. Now, if we look at the long-term price action of Palantir, we're going to ask ourselves whether this company will have a place in the economy of tomorrow. Well, I mean, maybe not tomorrow, but after tomorrow. We already know that Palantir will not be profitable for another few years. That much is priced in. We know that Palantir is in a highly sophisticated and, intelligence-intensive industry, and that its goal is to become the analytic dashboard of some of the wealthiest entities on the planet. The true debate is whether Palantir itself can stand the test of time and whether the market believes in its potential to become something much larger and critical for the world economy. Palantir stock fell by 80% from the peak of the share price, from $35 down to $7. Much of it is due to the overall market trend, and the rest is caused by the doubts over the growth potentials and the business model. I think personally that Palantir has been testing its bottom for some time now, as the downward slope stopped its progression for more than 6 months, ever since the price reached like $8. The rest of the downward slide is probably just caused by habit. Doesn't mean that the stock will reach new highs soon. Of course not. On the other hand, I do believe that Palantir will have a place in the future, and that its price is due to some significant change in people's outlook for the sector, not really just for Palantir. Given its current fundamentals and also the price action, I think that the most logical scenario is a price recovery once the storm is behind us. It hasn't finished just yet, so we might have to hang on for some time longer. As we look at Palantir's financial, the first thing to notice is the positive gross margin. Above all else, this is a very good reminder that the company's core business seems to be relevant and works. It is true that revenue has been growing, slower than anticipated, but we gotta remember that this revenue growth happens even when the overall economy is probably already in a recession. It sparked some worries from investors, but I think that this is not a huge problem. And we have to remember that if the gross margin is growing, or at least is positive, this would mean that if Palantir scales up, it's going to help solving its problem of lack of profitability. So another significant aspect to consider is the liabilities. They currently have about $933 million outstanding, which is mostly constant, even decreasing a little bit. This is also very reassuring, as it suggests that Palantir is keen on having a relatively stable and maybe low leverage for a company like this, which decreases its solvency risk. There is around 34% of institutional ownership at the moment. So for me, what this means is that Palantir has a significant endorsement from money managers, but they're largely outnumbered by the retail traders. and that there will be some significant chunk of people going in and out of the company based on the stock movements. It would also suggest that Palantir is good for investment, but beware of people who hope to profit off the swings as well. So definitely the best advice to give is don't blink when small volatilities occur, or don't blink when you see that the little grind to like lower spots still occurs. This is normal. And if you want to hang in there for the long term, then these are only like small hurdles, relatively speaking. Currently, there are 4.2 million shares shorted against Palantir. Some might believe that, there's potential for a short squeeze because it takes about like 4 days to recover. I personally think that the volume is not significant enough for a short squeeze, but nevertheless, it can act as a secondary push. If, let's say, Palantir announces that it manages to break even, or it manages to, obtain some healthcare clients in markets that it aims to obtain. So overall, I think that Palantir will be able to make its mark in the future, and that it is a stock that is better to invest in rather than to trade. In the meantime, it should be treated with anticipation that the short-term price movements might not be bullish necessarily. So dollar averaging into Palantir seems to be the best option for the moment, at least for the next, 12 months or so. The recommended exposure would be 3 to 5% of your portfolio at the moment.